I think about God as being a presence in our relationships, as being there when we're in relationship with someone else, existing between people, we like to say. But in Judaism, we have as many conceptions of God as Christianity and other religions. So many people have their own concept of God, and many Jews don't believe in God. So I would tell you that in our faith, there's a full spectrum of God belief, and we can't make any assumptions. The central tenet of our faith regarding death and dying is that we don't actually know what happens after we die. We do believe that there could be an afterlife, but we don't know exactly what that afterlife looks like. So most Jewish people will tell you that our tradition asks us to focus on life here and now, on what we experience in our lives with other people and our experience with God here and now, and that we hope that there is an afterlife and that afterlife is beautiful and glorious, but we don't propose to know exactly what it looks like. The most important religious practices within Judaism after death, when it comes to the deceased, is that we care for the deceased body almost as if it's still alive, meaning that we believe that the soul feels pain that the body would feel even after the body has died. So we don't embalm our loved ones. Usually we try to bury them very quickly for that reason. A Jewish funeral will usually be within 48 hours. And then there are a lot of practices that come in the days and months that follow, very specific practices for those who are in mourning. So we have what's called Shiva, which is a 7-day period where the loved ones talk about the person who's died, where the community comes to their house to pray. They bring them food. And one of the overarching concepts is that we don't try to beautify the period of mourning. So some of the things you won't see Jewish families do that you might see in other traditions is we don't bring flowers, for instance. Some families cover their mirrors and they don't wear fancy clothes in the week following their loved one's passing, because we believe that you should experience the sadness and the pain and not try to eliminate it. It's supposed to happen. So we embrace that part as hard as it is. And months later, in the same vein, we often don't place flowers at a graveside, but we'll place a stone. So it's also the same idea, not beautifying the period of mourning, but rather saying a stone is something that's permanent, but it's also harsh, and mourning somebody is hard. So we use a stone for our symbol. You'll see that on Jewish graves often if you go to visit, that there are stones placed on top of the headstone. So when somebody's actively dying, we believe that we have to be gentle with them, because you never know, especially when they've become unable to communicate. You don't know what causes them pain. So the first value would be to try to be gentle with the person. We always wish for them to lay peacefully and to die peacefully in whatever way possible, which includes whatever medicines are available and whatever medical practices are available. We embrace the idea that they should be able to peacefully die and leave this world that way. In terms of prayers, we don't have specific last rites, but there is a prayer called the Vidui, V-I-D-U-I, that you can Google and look up. It's a prayer in which the person who is in the process of dying asks for forgiveness and promises to forgive all of those who may have harmed that person in their life. And again, this attaches to the concept of we want people to leave peacefully, not only physically peacefully, but we want their death to also be something in which they feel at peace with the world and with everybody who they loved. And we know relationships are complicated, and we hope that they can have closure in all of their relationships. And often we invite family members to be present as the person says that prayer so that they can also feel a sense of closure. But it's not a required prayer. It is something that we will often invite them to say. I would say to a dying resident that I hope that they can find a sense of peace in their last days, and I would invite them to talk to anybody who they might want to say words to, or perhaps even write a letter if that person couldn't be present, and simply share with them that they're a part of God's creation and that their life has had an impact on the world, and try to reflect with them on where they may feel that impact was present most in their life, and remind them that they're loved, and hope that they can go peacefully. But the most important thing would be to, as best we can, be there with them, make sure they don't feel alone. Common misconceptions regarding Judaism are that all Jews are practicing Judaism in the same way. So there's a lot you can learn on the internet, and a lot of it's very wonderful information, but that doesn't mean that that's going to describe exactly how any given Jewish family might experience our religion. So you might read online or know from a friend that Jewish people eat food in a certain way by keeping kosher, but many Jewish people keep kosher in a variety of ways or don't keep kosher at all. So I would say it's never to make presumptions as to what somebody's Jewish experience is, but let them lead you and direct you as to what Judaism means to them. Judaism often is understood by people to be both a culture and a religion. Sometimes people are very connected to the religion and they practice like a very observant Christian would practice Christianity by going to the synagogue often, by reading Hebrew prayers, by keeping kosher. And sometimes people are Jewish without being religious at all, and they'll tell you that they're culturally Jewish or ethnically Jewish. And that can be deeply important to them. And there are certain rituals and practices that they might want to practice, even though they would tell you they never go to a synagogue and they never say prayers out loud. So I would let them direct you. I would be willing to understand Judaism from their perspective as best you can, and ask them questions.